There's a lot of talk about the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, this election season. Gun control has been a hot-button topic in politics for many years, as well as what the Founding Fathers could have meant when they wrote that amendment, back before there were even such things as assault weapons and nuclear bombs. But we're going way back before all that in this episode, starting with trying to find the Elixir of Life, to the creation of fireworks, to weaponry of the Middle Ages, and how a plot to overthrow the king became a holiday still celebrated today. I'm your host, Emily Prokop, and this is the story behind Gunpowder. But first, a quick word from #Podern Family, a great group of indie podcasters like me.
What is the Podern Family?
Hey, this is Shane.
That's not Shane. That's a robot sent by the government.
And that's Kenny from
I'm
Now
a robot too.
From Now That I'm Older.
More like Now That I'm Robots.
This is Gabriel Russo from the Hollywood Scandals of Yesteryear podcast.
This is Steve from the Drift and Ramble podcast.
This is Nick from the Epic Film Guys podcast.
This is Emily from The Story Behind.
This is Adam from Everyone Has a Podcast.
This is Sean Harrigan from the Cinescape podcast.
We are you, podcasters coming together in a community to help one another grow. So follow us on Twitter at Podern Family and use the hashtag Podern Family in your tweets and retweet other people who do the same. Podern Family, where great podcasts come home.
The story behind Gunpowder begins, believe it or not, with the search for the Elixir of Life. As early as 300 AD, Chinese scientists were experimenting with saltpeter, a chemical compound of potassium nitrate formed by decomposing animal manure. So basically, they were playing with animal poop. By the 8th century, saltpeter and sulfur were combined with charcoal, and the resulting concoction was used to treat skin diseases and kill insects. This was before anyone knew exactly how powerful the combination, now known as gunpowder, would be. Alchemists began using this combination of chemicals in their search for the Elixir of Life. But what they found out was that it burned incredibly quickly, and with tremendous power. A single spark could result in a quick and smoky fire. What better way to use this dangerous combination than as part of a celebration of the Emperor's birthday with the first known fireworks? Fireworks were all well and good, but the Chinese knew that something as powerful as gunpowder could be used for so much more, and the Sung dynasty began using it to defend themselves against the constantly invading Mongols. What they would do is place gunpowder into a tube, followed by an arrow. When the tube was ignited from the other end, the gunpowder would catch on fire and the gas produced would produce enough pressure to propel the arrow out and across enemy lines. Following the success of that, the Chinese invented more gunpowder-based weaponry, including the first cannons and grenades. By the 13th century, the science of gunpowder spread to Europe and the Islamic world. During the Middle Ages, cannons became common weapons used during many wars, including the 100 Years' War and the Siege of Constantinople. The first handgun appeared in the 15th century. As it was a shrunken-down cannon, which created a new class of soldier, the infantry. With each new advance in gunpowder weaponry came the advancement of defenses against those, meaning weaponry had to stay one step ahead, which perpetuated the arms race we're still seeing today. You may be familiar with the Guy Fawkes masks popularized by the movie V for Vendetta and associated with the hacktivist group Anonymous. But Guy Fawkes is the reason Gunpowder Night, otherwise known as Fireworks Night, Bonfire Night, or Guy Fawkes Night, is celebrated in the UK on November 5th. Which, if you don't live there, you may at least be familiar with the phrase, "Remember, remember the 5th of November." Guy Fawkes was behind what's known as the Gunpowder Plot of 1605. King James and Parliament were persecuting Roman Catholics, and a man named Robert Catesby, whose father had been persecuted by Queen Elizabeth I, Guy Fawkes and their co-conspirators had a plan to store gunpowder below the Parliament building. When Guy Fawkes was found lurking in a cellar under the building, he was taken into custody and 36 barrels of gunpowder was found. As to why he went to such extremes, Fawkes replied,
"A desperate disease requires a dangerous remedy."
Fawkes was tortured until he confessed the names of other conspirators, as well as the conspiracy of trying to blow up the English Protestant government and replace it with the Catholic government. Fawkes was sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered in London, but before he could be executed, he jumped from the ladder to the gallows, broke his neck, and died. King James, and by the way, this is the same King James of the King James Version Bible, burned an effigy of Guy Fawkes, and England passed restrictive laws on Catholics, including taking away their right to vote. Parliament established November 5th as a day of public thanksgiving the year after, but it's evolved into a twisted celebration of Guy Fawkes, albeit with many burning effigies of the Pope, Guy Fawkes, or contemporary political figures in bonfires. The only place in the UK that does not celebrate is Guy Fawkes' former school, St. Peter's in York, because they refuse to burn effigies of him out of respect. Going back to one of gunpowder's earliest uses, fireworks are always set off on that night. The role of Guy Fawkes was played by Paul from the podcast Rick and Paul Heal the World. Information for this episode was sourced from History.com, LiveScience.com, EpicFireworks.com, The Telegraph, and KaleidoscopeCulturalChina.com. For these links and more, visit the show notes at storybehind.com. Follow on Twitter at StoryBehindPod, or subscribe on your podcatcher of choice so you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.